That's
I
what I
don't
was
think it's
curious.
much that for me, like losing followers. I think for me, it's more like, am I going to say this right, God? Is it going to come out right?
Right.
Like, is
Yeah,
this
that's
what
what I
you
do.
really want me to say, God?
That's
Like,
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, not so much like, oh, I'm going to lose followers. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, I started from zero.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So, I just think it's more like, okay, God, am I saying this right? Like,
I think I'm the same way.
like,
Sometimes I get very hesitant to say things. I'm like, I want it to sound right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, we
I
be-
think
I
too
want
much
it to
before I
We be
speak.
in here edit like you, bro. You gonna see it tomorrow because we're gonna have to do an episode because we're supposed to drop it today. But like we'll like sit here and I'll be like, bro, no, we gotta say that differently. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that came off right. And plus, you want to be making sure you spitting truth too, like biblical truth, straight to the Bible, and not your own personal opinion or
Facts.
preference.
See,
So,
See,
like,
that's what I like, and I feel like a lot of my opinions sometimes get in the way of that because sometimes I can be very opinionated about certain topics. So I'm just like, that's why I'm just like, I need to be very diligent, I guess.
Yeah.
when I speak.
No, that makes sense.
But I also get convicted about not sharing because of that fear.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Because somebody could be missing out on the word that they need because you're like, oh my God, am I saying this right? Should I say this? You know, it's
Right.
like someone could be missing out on that word, that breakthrough. So it's like, yeah, I be getting convicted on that heavy all the time. For
Right.
Sure.
Nah, but y'all ready? You go straight into it?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's get it, man. What's this episode? We don't know.
We don't know. 40 maybe.
We don't know.
41.
But look, what's up, y'all? It's your boy D Starks.
Starks the artist.
And you're tuned in to the Just Different podcast where we talk everything faith, life, and culture. We got a special guest here today.
Very special guest.
Very special guest, bro. All the way out from out west. You know what I mean? Flew in today and is dropping it on the EP. She said we could get straight into it. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Let's do it. How you
Whatever.
feeling? You feeling okay?
Honestly, I'm feeling comfortable. The Lord's will be done. You know?
It is so.
Just speak through me, Lord.
But no,
God.
look, this is Clarissa Rojas. I'm super excited to have her here today. I came across her on like TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And since then, we just been like mutuals and like going back and forth with one another. And then like I remember one time we were on live, and I was just like, yo, like I was like, yo, like just joking, just trolling, like, yo, you should come on the podcast. And she was like, yeah, I'm down. I was like, oh snap.
I wasn't expecting that.
Then at that point, we had to make it happen. So I'm excited for this conversation today. Like the woman can preach. I mean, just be preaching.
Hey.
On the way here, we was having an EP in a car, just spitting facts. Like we were just driving here chilling. But no, today we're gonna have like a really conversation about like this, you know, her testimony, her own life, her platform, and then really like vulnerability. A lot. It's gonna be like what it's gonna be centered around, like for the most part. Because I remember one of our first conversations that we ever had, like when we FaceTime. I want to start here because whenever we were on that call, something you had mentioned like a word that you had for this year or a phrase that you were sticking to. You remember what you told me?
Yeah, attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, attitude of gratitude. And like it was simple. I had heard it before, but the way you were breaking it down, I was like, dang, that's really deep. And I was going through that same kind of season of learning that. So like what's that even mean to you, like right now?
So I guess it was kind of trickled into this year.
Yeah.
And I kind of made it my motto for this year, I guess. And I just had a really rough year last year. Mainly towards the end. And I think I was so focused on my problems and what I was going through. I was just like, God, how can you get me through this? Like, I was just so focused on the problem, what I was going through, the pain I was experiencing. And I was just trying to navigate through that. And I remember the Lord, he was urging me to read in Job, and I didn't read it immediately. I was kind of like pushing it off. I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I was kind of running from what he was trying to tell me. Like, you know, because I knew he was going to tell me the truth. I knew he was going to give me the answer I wanted. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to hear it at the time, but it came to a point I was like, okay, I need to.
Right.
And, you know, I got into the book of Job, and, you know, we eventually learned that, you know, Job, he has all these things and he eventually loses everything.
All of it.
His food, his home, his kids, like,
Crazy.
you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I thought I had it bad.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going through this little thing right here compared to Job. And what caught my attention immediately was his response to losing all these things, the response to the pain he was experiencing. It says that Job ripped off he tore his garment and was beating on his chest. And biblically, that's a sign of humility. And I was like, Because Job could have been like, I did all this work for you, Lord. I
Easily.
did this. I did that. I worked for this.
What's
like,
up?
you know what I'm saying? Like, and he could have been prideful because sometimes I see myself doing that. Like, I did this, Lord. I worked hard for this. Now it's all gone.
Bro, I
Like,
was fasting. I was cutting these relationships off, bro.
Man, sacrificing, man.
right. All this hard work, all this time I put in, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's our pride. But Job didn't respond like that. His immediate response was to humble himself before God. And it said he worshiped him and thanked him. And I was like, that's it. That's
Right.
literally all it said. And I was like, immediately after I read that, I stopped, got on my knees and started praying. And I was like, you know what? I need to be more thankful, more grateful for the things that I do have and understand God's giving hand, because Job recognized God's giving hand in that moment. You know, Job understood that everything he had was because of God. You know, and I feel like we can forget that, like, oh, like, everything I have, I worked for it. You know, I put in the time, I put in the work, like, you know what I'm saying? And behind the scenes, it's God giving you those things. You know, God's blessing you with these things. So I guess that's where gratitude comes
Right.
from.
No,
you
that was
know?
fire. That was like really the start of our conversation. And then I don't know how, just naturally in the progression, like what we were talking about on the phone, like we end up getting into like a conversation about like vulnerability. And like what that looked like and what that meant. And you like were just like giving me a lot of gems on that. Like what that looked like in your own life, honestly. And I thought that was important because like, I don't know. I feel like right now in the culture that we live in, like even today, it's more like, how would I say, we're more reserved, right? We're not really like more like open to like, it's always like, yo, don't make sure they don't know you care too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Like stay to yourself. Like don't put too much effort in. Don't look like a simp. Like don't do that. Like whatever it is, like you can't put yourself out there. And like we're always big on like when you step into the kingdom, things have to change.
Yes.
Right. And what we always say, I think we've talked about this on the podcast, it's like God can't touch what you don't give him access to. And so like whenever you like when it comes to like your relationship with God and you like ultimately being transformed and being changed, the vulnerabilities are non-negotiable.
Yeah.
You're not gonna go anywhere without it, without giving him everything for him to actually have access to it.
Yeah.
And so like that's what I want to ask you about. Like next, like what's that look like for you? Like what is that like vulnerability, that role play with your relationship with God? How big is that for you right now?
Vulnerability is huge for me right now. And I say that because I struggle with pride. I like to keep things to myself. I like to keep, I was telling you, I was like, I wanted it to just be me and God. Like, you know, because
It'd be like you be getting the modes where it's like, yo, it's me and God versus the world. Like I don't need nobody. I'm good.
no, that's literally me. And like, I don't have any, I really don't have any female Christian friends I could really depend on. So I was like in this mindset, like, okay, just me and you, God, like, let's like, you know, whatever. I don't need anybody. I don't need, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And God was like, you actually do need fellowship. You know, you need that to grow. Right. And I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ready to be open with people about my personal life or how I feel, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I just wasn't ready to be open, you know? And I have been with a few people, and they've been so great to, like, just comfort me with the word of God, and it's been great, but that's select.
For sure.
Select,
Yeah.
you know, few people, you know? So, like I said, my pride was getting in the way of my vulnerability. I didn't want to open up, and God was like, well, how do you think our relationship is going to work if you're not open with me? Because, you know, if I couldn't open up with other people, I started realizing that I don't even open up with God that much. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm hiding things from him. I'm not telling him certain things, you know, but at the same time, I'm asking him to grow. And God's like, okay, well, then you need to open up. You need to start talking to me. Yeah. You need to start letting go of that shame and guilt you're feeling. Give it to me. And let's just talk through it. Just talk to me like I'm here. You know what I'm saying? And so I just started opening up to him. And I think that being vulnerable with God created more intimacy with him. And that's when I started seeing real growth. And I was telling him that it's literally like, you know, I guess a simple equation, I guess you could say, you know, vulnerability plus intimacy, that equals growth. And, you know, that's what God requires of us. And, yeah, so I guess I'm still learning on the aspect of when it comes to being vulnerable with people, because I think my most recent experience when it came to being vulnerable, I thought I had this friend that I was like, okay, this is gonna be a lifelong friendship. Like, you know, I see this person as my friend for a while. Yeah, I see this person as my friend, like, you know, for life. Like, I guess, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can usually, I'm thankful for God for my discernment. I can usually tell when somebody's a great friend or, you know, gonna be a great friend or a long-term friend. But I think I was just deceiving myself in the moment because I really wanted this person to be my friend.
Right.
And I opened up about my fears, personal issues with my family, and only for us to not be friends at the end. So that completely shattered me, broke me, and I was like, that's it. I'm not sharing anything ever again. Like, you know, so I was like, God, like, I'm not doing that again, like, blah, blah, blah. And so God had to take me on this journey, like, okay, wait, pause. Like, this is one person. Yeah. And I told you not to talk to this person. I told you you weren't supposed to be friends with this person. And I think God had to correct me in that way. Like, look, I told you this wasn't going to be a friend.
Right.
You had that discernment. You knew. But you saw potential in this friend, right? So...
And we talked about it in Heartbreak Anniversary. Like, that was a fire EP, so you go back and listen to it. But like, basically, like, essentially, like, to experience complete healing, you have to be in a position of complete surrender. Right. Like, the two have to go coincide and go hand in hand. Like, you can't expect like anything like in your life to ever, like, you know, get given to God or be touched by Him if it's not anything like you're going to offer up or like be willing to. Like, you have to be in a complete surrender, because like you said like earlier, like, you'll compartmentalize things. It's like, okay, I'll give my you know, maybe my time over here to God, but like my relationships, like, let me keep that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I'll give you. You know what I mean? You want my finances? That's cool, but that person right there, nah, fam.
Right.
That's mine. And so like you said just earlier, like, we just kind of have to get to that point where it does have to be a complete thing. Like, we're all in or all out. Like, you know what I mean? It's not going to be any in between. Like, what we have to do ultimately, for real.
And I feel like there wasn't no peace either.
Yeah.
And you know how I told you, like, peace in the Hebraic word is shalom. And shalom in Hebraic means complete wholeness. And I feel like you said, when we don't give everything to God, you know, He's missing a piece of the cake.
Yeah.
So we're not feeling that peace anymore because we're keeping some of it, and it's like, you know, we're now in a little rift anymore. We don't have peace anymore.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me, like, in 2 Corinthians when Paul talks about how, like, I'll boast in my weakness if that means your power can rest on me. Like, where I'm weak is where you're strong, you know. So I had to realize, in terms of just being weak with God, is just that I'm never gonna be able to fully experience the power of God until I fully experience how much I need it, or fully acknowledge how much I need it. You know what I mean? And being weak before, I'm like, God, I'm weak. I deal with this insecurity. I have this. Like, now your power can rest on me. So, like, I think in that weakness is where God is strong, like what Paul was saying. So, yeah.
But that's come from a lot of pride, though, because, but like I said, we're just like, it's so countercultural to actually, like, lay all that down, to, like, be like, yo, like, no, I'm dealing with this. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm actually going through it, or like whatever it is. And so, like, a lot of what we, like, see in the world or do with our relationships is how we're going to, like, interact with God. And sometimes we don't always, like, see that or understand it to its full extent, but it's something, like, to also ultimately, like, recognize and be like, okay, like, I see this, and let me actually, like, give Him everything. But there was something that when we were talking, you were going, like, you had dropped this on me, and I was like, yo, like, nah, she legit. Talk to me. I need to hear it. She the one. And so, like, I don't know if it was like a book you were reading, or like it was at least something in some article or something, and the title of it was like Dare to Be Vulnerable, right? So I'm gonna read this for y'all real quick because it was really powerful. It said, chances are your heart has been or will be broken at one time. As death is a part of life, heartbreak is a part of love. It may be tempting in the midst of pain to become cynical about loving someone again, but I warn you against this. C.S. Lewis speaks to this as he writes, now this is the part right here. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything in your heart would be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it up carefully around with hobbies, little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up in a safe, casket or coffin, or your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. To love is to be vulnerable.
Dang.
And I thought that was, like, fire, cause, like, and there was this one song, like, I don't know if you know, it's like by Aha and Rango, and it says a line in it, it's like, everybody gonna hurt you. What you ducking it for? You just gotta find ones worth suffering for.
That bar right there. Every time I hear that one, it hits so different, bro.
Yeah, and it didn't really hit until after she read that to me, and I listened to the song. I was like, hold on, that's so crazy. But like, I don't know, people like realize that like to love it all, to like even give to anybody, like it's vulnerability. You know what I mean? And like if we, like I said, like if we keep ourselves from that, like our heart becomes like impenetrable.
Yeah.
And like it can't like, you know, it's not gonna go anywhere. It can't be like soft enough for God to actually take and do anything with. And so I like, cause you be getting in those modes where it's like, bruh, like I'm not about to do this anymore. That's crazy.
Right.
But how did you get out of that, like, you know what I mean, that season of like, okay, dang, like I really don't want to share or give this to like anybody, you know what I mean? What did that process actually look like just for you personally, like going through that? Because I think that's kind of where that conversation led, like dare to be vulnerable. It's like, yo, at some point it was just like, nah, fam, like I'm just gonna stay to me, be all by myself, like
right. Well, if you read it, it says to love at all is to be vulnerable. I grew up learning constantly about love, like that's all my uncle taught me about, you know. I grew up learning about love almost every Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
The love of God was brought to always talked about in church, you know. And I was like, I want to love like that. I want to love people like that. You know, like no matter if like they hurt me,
right.
I want to love deeply like that, you know. And it says right there, to love at all is to be vulnerable. It requires something of you. It requires your time. It requires sacrifice.
Right.
You have to give something. And you can't expect anything in return. You don't expect reciprocation, you know? I guess it's different from other followers of Christ because they know who love is and what love is. So they know how to naturally reciprocate that love back. But to somebody who doesn't, how are you going to respond to that, you know?
Yeah.
How are you going to respond to somebody who doesn't know how to love you back? You know what I'm saying? Are you still going to love them the same? So I think, like in regards to loving and being vulnerable, it just requires you to be open. And I guess I don't want to say weak because vulnerability is such a courageous trait. Like I was saying earlier, it requires you to be strong and bold and act out. It's showing emotions and exposing all your fears and things you don't really want to talk about. You know what I'm saying? And I think other people need to see that. I know that when I've shared my testimony to several people, I know that that is a love language of mine when I share my testimony to people. So that's kind of me showing my love to them. Like, look, I'm trusting you with this information, you know, and that's me being vulnerable. That's me opening up to you. That's me revealing something so private to you. You know what I'm saying? And to have them, I guess, however they respond, you know, is how they respond back, and I have to be okay with however they respond back, you know.
No, yeah. And then I like
that makes sense.
No,
I'm
yeah,
like,
no,
I feel like I kind of went off topic.
No, yeah. And I remember I like how you said that like sometimes whenever we are loving, like to love it all is to be vulnerable. So like when we are loving, that's a part of like vulnerability. But like what happens when that's not reciprocated or someone doesn't express that back? And I see that a lot, like even like I guess with myself, like I'll love, you know what I mean, if they do. Like I'll initiate this, like this care, this contact. Okay, I'm gonna call you if you call me, you know what I mean? Like like it has to be something that like, yo, it's very responsive, but like the love that God calls us to express and that we know is like initiative. Like it's not on the back end of like, okay, let me wait. It's like, let me see.
It's like we like to react in love instead of like live in it. You know what I mean? Or like react with love.
That's a bar.
You know?
That's a bar.
I remember someone had snapped me the other day and they were talking to me about like, how do you feel about like the topic about like giving back that same energy? You know what I mean? Like, okay, like I'm going to give the same energy people give me. And I feel like that's such an unstable, like you're allowing everyone else to dictate how you're feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like such an unstable
or how you
type
treat
of life.
anybody else.
Exactly. Like now I'd rather live on my own terms. Like I'm going to move how I move regardless of how you're moving. Like that's kind of mindset I have about it and something I had to develop because it is kind of hard to give love. Honestly, give anything to people when you feel like there's a possibility that they're not going to give it back. But I think it's kind of inevitable in a way.
Yeah, not for sure. And then a product of that is like, yo, like, it all comes from some place. Like I don't want to initiate this because at some point I gave my heart to somebody. I gave like all these things to them, and yo, they burned me.
Yep.
And it hurt, right? And so like it's like a product of
What's
like.
that lyric? You want to say it? I know you want to say it.
What lyric? Which one?
Is it a Drake lyric?
No.
It's always Drake.
No, it's Polo G. He was singing it out in the car.
But I can't remember. I gotta be listening to the song. But no, yeah.
It's like, I've been a victim of robbery too. Like
that song's valid. That's valid bars.
That song's actually fire.
It was so good though.
But no, and it's like, but it's a product of like fear. And this is what I want to talk about because of fear, like maybe anxiety a little bit of like, dang, like what is going to happen, or like you're afraid of like how they're going to respond or how they're not going to respond. More importantly, like when I'm being vulnerable or giving them my all, or even doing that with God, like, yo, he's not going to reciprocate that same energy. Like sometimes I said this in Heartbreak Anniversary, which is like, this really is a part of that conversation too. It's like, yo, sometimes we don't go to God because we don't believe that we're going to like receive anything from him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like we don't believe we're actually going to receive like any care, like any love, any genuine like effort on his part to actually like, yo, and like come wipe our tears and like do that for us. And so we had a conversation that was really tied to this. It was about like fear and anxiety in the life of a believer. And I thought that tied in really well because of like, you know, vulnerability may be like rooted in that. Right. And there was an article that you had showed me. Do you want to read it?
Should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead. I want you to.
Let's get it.
No, yeah.
Go ahead and read it.
Well, first I kind of want to talk about why.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, I feel like that's extremely important in regards to this, because I feel like a lot of people who deal with worry and anxiety, they suffer from mental health issues, and you know, I relate to that, you know what I'm saying? And I've been hospitalized for that because of panic attacks, fainting spells, worrying myself to the point of passing out, like, you know what I'm saying? And coincidentally, my mom has been there for every episode, but thank goodness, because like, you know, she's helped me get through it.
Of course.
But vulnerability, it starts becoming like this ball. You're keeping everything in. Like I said, like it starts becoming just you, and sometimes not even you and God, because you're hiding stuff from God. You start keeping things
compartmentalized.
Yeah, whatever. And then, like, you know, it starts building up, you know, and all that starts turning into worry, anxiety, fear. You don't want to open up to people. You're afraid of love. You're afraid of this. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, okay, this has to stop. It came to a point where I was suffering with this fear so badly, this certain fear, and I just wasn't eating. I wasn't doing anything, you know, like literally living off mashed potatoes, like
you told me about that.
Rice, mashed beans, anything soft, protein drinks, like, you know. And I was like, okay, this has to stop, because I was fainting even more because my body was becoming super weak. And I just felt the enemy coming at me, attacking me with this fear. And it was so bad. And I was like, okay, this has to stop. And I was seeking so many people for guidance and wisdom and revelation. I'm like, what's going on? Like, no one seems to know what's wrong with me. I went to therapy. I went to doctors. I went to have my throat looked at, like, because I couldn't eat. And that, like, I was seeking for all these answers, but I was seeking them in the wrong place. I wasn't even running to God.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I was looking for doctors for answers when I could have been getting on my knees and asking for the one who held the answer to this problem. You know what I'm saying? And coincidentally, one day at church, I went to my uncle, who also happens to be my pastor, and I came to him with this problem, crying, because I'm in pain. I'm broken. I'm torn up by this fear, you know? And he... I went to him, and he's like, open your Bible. And I was like, okay, like, I'm opening it. I'm about to get some good, like...
Something profound, something crazy.
Yes.
You emotionally distraught. You looking for some, like, wise words? Something deep. But she thought she was about to get a whole word. For real. Go ahead.
Right. So he's like, open up Philippians 4:6. I was like, okay. I was like, oh, I know this verse. He's like, yeah, read it. I was like, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And I read that to him. He's like, yep, that's it. And I was like,
cool.
That's all I got.
I was nodding my head. I was like, yeah. Yeah. I went back home and I was crying. I was like, that's
it's
it.
Like, bro don't even care about me. Ain't no way.
Right.
One verse was Revelation. Come on.
I was so hurt. I was like, no, because, you know, like, I just expected more. I was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I went home, cried, and I was angry at God. I was like, really, God? I was like, that's it? Like, that's it? Like literally yelling. And I just, after that, after like my anger was just really, I sat back down. I remember this day laying on my bed, and then I just hear God whisper, like, yeah, that's it. And I was like, not you too. Like, you know? And so I opened my Bible and to this verse, and I started reading it, that chapter, Philippians 4. And then I started doing study on it, and I found this article. And it's about worry and anxiety, obviously, and fear, what I was dealing with. And the first thing this article talks about is being ignorant of God's love. And I was like, that stung my pride because I was like, wait, I love God. What do you mean? Like, I know what love is, you know? So he says this. Let me say this very carefully. I was like, uh-oh. He says, a fact that every one of us has to face is that when we feel that life is meaningless, when we are bored with life, when we feel dead in our spirits, with our emotional hurts and pains, with our mental confusion, all of those phrases add up to one thing, at least at that moment, that we are ignorant of God's love and the love he has for us. For when I know the love God has for me, then my mental confusion disperses like fog on a summer morning. The hurts and pains of my life are healed by his presence. Boredom is a word that can never be used by a person who walks in the love of God. This is the answer. It is the final key to all of our spiritual, mental, emotional health, and indeed our physical health too. The answer is the love of God. One major symptom of not actively believing the love which God has for me is worry and anxiety. I believe, based on intense research of Scripture, that anxiety, worry, and fear have no place in the life of a believer. I believe that with all my heart. I should never have my mind troubled by anxiety and worry if I live in the consciousness of the love God has for me. From the beginning to the end of the Bible, the Spirit tells us plainly, do not worry. In the Old Testament, he gives us case after case history of people who were placed in situations that caused them to worry. Then he shows us how they came out of them, living in the love of God. The New Testament is full of similar commands. I want you to realize this because we tend to treat worry casually. We all worry. Read this. Be anxious for nothing. That is a command, not a suggestion. God doesn't come to us and say, well, I know how it is. You live in terrible times. I understand. No, he doesn't. He says, be anxious for nothing. End of discussion.
Heater.
So even more so, I was like,
yeah.
like, you know, I was kind of like, my pride was taken back. I was like, wait a minute. Like,
no, that last part was like,
at the same time, you know, fear and love cannot coexist. They don't mash up together. And it was just a matter of me following that command. Not just the command of do not be anxious, but the rest of the verse, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. So I imagined myself, okay, what am I anxious about? No need to be anxious about this. God is our provider. Reminding yourself of who God is and what he's done for you already. By prayer, start talking to him. Petitioning to him what it is that's going on with you.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? And then giving thanksgiving, like having an attitude of gratitude. What am I, you know, recognizing God's giving hand, you know what I'm saying? And then presenting your requests to God, you know? I went to him like I think I was afraid to ask for him for things like, you know, oh God, heal me of this. God, take this away from me, you know? Because I felt like I was undeserving.
Right.
And so I guess that's just part of the article. But I mean, you know, it was very deep, and it definitely sparked something in the way I viewed how I dealt with anxiety, worry, fear, and I actually haven't fainted, suffered from panic attacks, or that certain fear in about, I think, 2.5 years.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And
I used to have panic attacks where I would shake, like literally uncontrollably. Like my mom would have to throw me in the shower because I was so cold. And like, this is all recent. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so just after getting in God's word more and really diving deep into research and praying more, worshiping him more, I think that's when it all kind of just changed and stopped being ignorant of the love he had for me. You know what I'm saying? Understanding that he is capable of healing me, and he did. I mean,
facts. Yeah. No, and that's like a game changer. And that's what the last part of it was like what hit me. I was like, dang, that's the one. Like the fact that like be anxious for nothing. It's not any type of suggestion. Like it is like a command. And like it just, as soon as I was thinking even like about vulnerability and being like surrendering to God and just like being open, like whether that be like my inner circle, like in my own life, or like with God itself, it's like looking at how much fear like played a role into that, right? And being ignorant of like God's love for me, like the fact that like, yo, like, do I not believe that like he's gonna send good people into my life anymore? Right? How could I believe that he's not gonna give me the discernment to like even see like different attacks, spirits operating in people, like, yo, like, no, don't get in that relationship, like, because half the time we be seeing the red flags. Let's be real, you know what I mean? Like we be seeing the red flags and just
and
like
ignore them.
Yeah, and just be getting burned. So like, you know, for us to be like ignorant of like God's like what his provision and his care, to be like, yo, like I'm gonna protect you. And look, even if like you go through a trial, fences will come, right? Even the people that you do love in your inner circle are gonna hurt you, right? To love is to be vulnerable, like understanding and having that like conscious mind of like, yo, I have a God that loves me enough to like still heal me from that and get me through like whatever may come. So I was like, that's fire, because like you don't really always think about like, yo, how am I ignorant of God's love? Because sometimes it's all coming back, because we talking about like sometimes like we know like God loves us, but like do we live like it? You know what I mean? Like, are we living like it? Like we say it, but like is that something that's actually a part of our lives? And sometimes like we don't always live like that's the truth, or that's our truth ultimately. Yeah.
Even God was vulnerable to the point of the cross. Like, just look at him. Like, you know, he received the most horrible punishment of that time.
Yeah.
Right? And literally naked and beaten in front of dozens of people, spit on, mocked. You know what I'm saying? And he loved us that much. You know what I'm saying? So
like even when we think about like the betrayal in this inner circle that we were talking about, like the fact that we can't, those moments of like, yo, like I don't want to share, be open to people, like I always talk about like how Jesus is the standard. And so like if he had 12, what do we think that we can't, that we don't need anybody? Right. So like that being a perfect example of that, and then him knowing like, yo, like the people that I'm about to pour into, like 3 years of my life, 3 years, like everything that he had, all the miracles, the ministry, even like the inner things that he gave them that he wasn't giving the masses. And then like to have Judas betray, like Judas and like Peter and all his disciples, like, you know, at some point like come against him.
It's crazy. Like he knew that, like he said, someone's gonna in the circle's gonna betray me, like Peter, you're gonna deny me. Like he knew that and still decided to love them, you know what I mean? That's like powerful. He
was just showing like what that vulnerability looked like and what it could like ultimately become, what it did for everyone else. Like I think what did it talk about? I think it was like one quote I saw, I don't know if it was on Instagram or something, but it's like your victory is tied to someone else's breakthrough or something like that. And I just think that like, yo, his vulnerability was what, like him coming down and like dying on the cross, like him like ultimately humbling himself, like led to like humbling himself ultimately like led to like what we can walk into today. And I mean, I think that's major. I
think in the same way, like our vulnerability can lead to someone else's breakthrough as well. Like even in the us sharing our testimonies and like being vulnerable in that way, like I think a lot of people are dealing with a lot of same things we're dealing with, right? And when we broadcast that, like it shows people that, you know, there can be healing from this. So like even our vulnerability could lead to that breakthrough for sure.
And that's what I was gonna ask you about next, like kind of like just transition to that, is like how do you feel like that, if like when you started to open up or even be vulnerable, whether that be like on your own platform, like in your like your life, like your inner circle, like your community, whatever that looks like how much have you seen that change others, and did you expect it to do what it did, right? Because I know we talked about that TikTok post earlier that you had posted.
Oh
major.
I guess it was it's been more hard for me to be vulnerable now, just because I'm learning more about it and what it means. But wait, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
What did I say?
I don't remember what you said, bro. Basically,
no, we're talking about like vulnerability. Like how did how have you seen that like affect or change, like help other people? With your post. No,
I guess the first time, aside from the video, I remember sharing something I had went through with my sister's friend. And I'm gonna be quite frank. She was dealing with an issue or a crush she had, and I had just gotten out of a friendship, or like, as we were saying, situationship, I guess.
Right.
And I immediately had told her, I was being very open about it because I didn't want to talk about it. I did not want to talk. I wanted to pretend like it never happened.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, look, you need to listen to God. If you're not seeing fruit there, fruits say what words can't. You know? And I was like, you don't want to be ignorant of that. You know what I'm saying? You want to use the discernment God has given you to navigate how you're dealing with people.
Right.
Before you invite people into your life. And that's what's scary about vulnerability too. Like, you know, you don't know who you can trust. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's such a great gift from God, discernment.
Of course.
Because, you know, it allows you to trust who you're confiding in. And
Major.
the people who God sends you, you know? And so I had opened up to her. I was like, about what I had went through. I was like I got my heart broken because I expected this person that I was talking to be the person I was going to talk to long term, you know, because I'm not the type to just talk to anybody. This was the first guy, I should say, I've talked to my whole life. So I was like, okay, perfect. Like, he loves the Lord, you know, he says he's a Christian, let's go. Perfect. 2 weeks in, God was like, yeah, you see the fruit? Not there. And I was like, no, God, just give it time. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's potential here.
Yeah, we know how we be.
And
Yeah,
then,
facts.
right. And so, I was like, I remember coming across this TikTok video, like, weeks later. She was like, don't date potential. And that was, like, her first intro. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, you know? And, I had kind of opened up to her about, like, deeper, I'm not going to say it here, but, like, deeper issues I was dealing with this person, you know, because I was so emotionally involved with this person, you know, like, I wanted there to be something with this person, you know what I'm saying? Especially since this was the first person I had talked to and saw something with, like, you know what I'm saying? And so, I'm sorry. I'm, like, getting so, like...
Oh, you're good. You're good.
We'll cut in the post.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I was talking to her deeper about this, and she was like, I'm so glad you shared this with me. She's like, and like, I was crying because it was just so emotional for me, especially since we had stopped talking. I at least hoped we would be friends, you know? And I'm glad we probably aren't at the moment, because I feel like that would have affected my walk even more. And she's like, thank you for sharing. I needed this. You don't understand. Like, then she started sharing with me, like, more about what she was going through and how it relates to what I had just shared with her. And I think in that moment, and this was at a coffee shop, and she was, I think in that moment, I really realized, I was like, wow, it felt good to see her, like, see the other person take my vulnerability and my pain and see it as it helpful to them.
Yeah.
Because I saw it as, no, I can't share this. This is too deep. Like, I don't want to share any of this emotion. Like, I'm heartbroken. I don't want anyone to know I'm heartbroken. She's like, I'm so glad you shared this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to go through that. Like, blah, blah, blah. And so I guess that was the first moment. And it was during that season, I wasn't just going through a heartbreak, but I was dealing with, I think, the personal issues at home, which were really deep, which caused a lot of that pain that you saw in that video. And my sibling issues that I was dealing with, and personal issues I was dealing deeply. My selfishness, my greed, my past, because sometimes it comes back and haunts me, and I'm just like, oh no, like, not today. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I was dealing with so much in the span of like August 2021 to like October, and I was just being taken through the fire and the trial. And I think God was like, all right, like, we need to be more vulnerable. And vulnerable people start sharing more. I was like, no, God, like, blah, 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 like,
I'm good.
keep this to myself.
Yeah.
No one's gonna know about this. No one's gonna know I was ever heartbroken. Like, that's that pride coming back in. Like, no one's gonna ever know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody saw me as like this strong, like, woman of God.
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, I've never gotten my heart broken, I guess. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, I was like, no one can know. Like, you know? And so I remember being in the car one time, just parked, watching airplanes fly off, and I was just crying, pouring my heart out to God. And I feel like I couldn't do it at home. I just had to be away.
Yeah.
And so, ironically, but I've never recorded myself crying. I've never taken pictures of myself crying. Like, that's just personal. Like,
Right.
that's something I felt like I only did with God watching me. Something between me and him. Only his eyes can see, you know? And I was just like, you know what? I want to remember this because I know I'm going to come back from this moment. I know there's hope. I know there's more to this pain than I'm experiencing right now. And I want to look back on this moment and see how far God's brought me. And so I recorded myself crying and just pouring my heart out to God. Long story short, a few months later, I'm moving to Vegas, going to school, like pursuing a career God has put on my heart. Something God has led me to, you know what I'm saying? Coming so far, you know? And I put together a video and of me crying and then what my life was like after, basically. And it was in my drafts for a while, like for a long while.
long?
I was looking at it, huh?
How long was it in dress for?
It's like a month and a couple.
That's not too long. That's not too long.
A month and a couple weeks, you know.
Okay.
But the thing is like when videos in your drafts, you start getting iffy. I was looking at that video every day. I was like, I'm gonna delete this. This chat. Like, you start thinking too much about it. I'm like, what are people gonna say about this? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it got to a point where God was like, all right, it's time to be more vulnerable. This is the time, Clarissa.
Yeah.
And I was like, to the internet? Like, you know what I'm saying? They're
Take it to the gram.
I'm like, they're bold out there. They're vicious, God. They're vipers out there. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I was just like, I just pulled the trigger. I was like, you know what?
Right.
This is bound to help somebody. If it can help my sister's friend who I was in the coffee
course.
shop with, it's going to help somebody else. Long story short, not that this... What matters to me is just people felt like they can relate to that. After I posted, they were DMing me, how did God help you deal with this? How did God help you get past this pain? And it was just so heartwarming, I guess, you know, to just see that people, and I guess that's what encouraged me to be more vulnerable with people, you know, not to be so afraid of being vulnerable, be afraid of loving and sharing what I've gone through, you know.
No, and I saw that post and I always like bring it up because it was like for real powerful. Because I be seeing people. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, like y'all know how I move. I be seeing people like crying like on Instagram or like whatever, whether it be like TikTok, or be like, oh, y'all cool. Like sometimes it just doesn't seem like so authentic or real to me all the time. But like that one like really stood out. But like you just showing the journey though, like it was like that video, but also you showing like, yo, like how you can come, like how you came from that, and then seeing the responses. And that's why I asked about that, like seeing just going through the comments and seeing the responses of everyone that could have like related to it and that was helping me, like, yo, like this helped me so much, this blessed me, like, yo, the fact that like there is hope, there is more outside of what I'm going through, seeing you get through it yourself, right? And I always think about how like I'll be in certain settings with different people and it'd be like, I don't know, like it's something that, you know, we may have all common like experience or be going through, and like nobody wants to say it, but like someone be like, yeah, man, like I'm dealing with like X, Y, and Z. Would be like, I don't know, I'm dealing with like lust, or I'm struggling with my relationships right now. I'll be like, dang, bro, you are too.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh snap, and like that just gives you like so much hope. Not like we all struggling together, but just the fact that like, yo, like you can, like we're all like peers in the same building, like going through that, like, you know what I mean, and then like, yo, we can help each other and like get through it. And then someone else like saying like, yo, I have overcome this, something that you've been through. It's like, dang. There's like hope at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if you be feeling that way, but like
no, 100%. You remember when we were at Passion? So we were at Passion, and the speaker, she told us, she was like, "Yo, get in groups of like 5 people you don't know, right?" Or like,
hold on. We gotta tell the backstory. So like, we were with the group. We were originally with a group of people like the entire weekend, right? Yeah. And then there was a switch in the sessions, right? So we had visited somebody else. So we were with her and her group. So we were in a group of people. We had no idea who they were. Okay. Like no idea. And we were with her, but like we had to get into like groups of like, I think it was 5 of like the same gender, right? So go ahead.
And then she was like, it was a powerful moment, but she was like, okay, everybody get in like groups of 5 people and just like it was like share something you're struggling with. like not the easy thing, you know, not the thing.
No,
Right.
like hard to. Yo,
Right.
everybody's heart stopped. I was like, she's capping, right? I thought it was rhetorical. I was like, there
I
ain't
thought
no
it was
way.
too, because I've heard preachers do it before. I was like, okay, we're not actually gonna get into groups of 5 and like
Yeah.
do this. And she was like, get up right now. Groups. I'm like,
That's
okay, so
cool.
we get in groups of 5, and like, bro, my heart's beating, bro.
Bro, I'm sweating.
I'm not going first. Like, I'm already like, bro, I'm not going first. I'm not saying what I'm dealing with. I'm not saying what I'm doing. And then this guy, he speaks up, and then he's like, I'm like, I'm dealing with that. I was like, I'm dealing with that too. Like, that's crazy.
Oh,
That's the thing I was scared to
Then
say.
we all went around and we had all been struggling with the same
struggling
thing.
with the same
See,
thing,
it's
bro.
that vulnerability.
Yeah. It
It's
was
that
crazy.
willingness to open and expose yourself.
Yeah,
expose
really.
what you're going
And you don't really
through.
think that, obviously something that you see so much like shame in, right? Like we talk
Yeah.
about so much pain, either that be shame, pain, or whatever, can
Yeah.
actually be encouragement for like somebody else or just people like around you that's so close.
I think it's so crazy how God can literally use anything. Like, God can use your pain to bring healing to other people.
Right.
I feel like that's so powerful. You know, something that you found, like you said, like so much shame in. Like God, you can use my mistakes to help people through theirs. Like you can use my, like, you know, downfalls to help people up. Like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all. Like that's important. Like we always talk about like shame and then guilt and how that like, because even when you're not vulnerable with God, like it's, I don't know, I guess limiting your own transformation and your own growth, but also those around you, which you don't always see. Like indirectly, it's like, yo, like me not being comfortable with like what God has brought me through or whatever that was I dealt with in that past season, like literally can like help so many other people. Because I remember even when we did, there was one EP we did,
Like our testimony service thing.
no, it was a while ago, but you know, I'm more of a reserved person. Like I'm more private. I don't
Same
like
here.
going to like the ground with stuff like Instagram or like social media at all. So doing this podcast has been like, you know, it's me stepping out a little bit, like more outside my comfort zone. And so like a lot of people get up, like, you know, maybe like DM us or something like, yo, like that's so powerful. Like you got all so open and transparent. I'm like, yo, if it was up to me, fam,
Hey,
I'm cool.
I'd be my own little world.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even, but like, you know, that's what God's been showing me even through this, like even my ministry, is the fact that like, yo, there's so much power in like you being open. Of course, like being selective, not just out here just telling your business like that, but like being very selective and like discerning with that, like how much that can help other people. And that's what it's for. Like, it's like, I can't remember what it's like. It's like, those are like, I don't know, like scars. But like I don't know like your past and like what you've been through, like what you may be hiding and not being vulnerable with. It's literally like a testament to how good God is.
Yeah, it's the saying. I know the saying you're talking about is like, when you show people your scars, it's like proof of healing. You know what I mean? Like they can heal from their cuts that they got, type thing.
Right. It's
kind of like when Jesus, like after he was buried and then he resurrected, it talks about how he still had like the holes in his hands and like the scars on his body, like just to show like he was really healed. You know what I mean? Just to show the receipts, like the proof of like I'm you know what I mean? Like
It's
I'm
a
healed.
receipt.
The receipt. It's a receipt.
The pain's a receipt.
It's a receipt.
That's a bar. That's a bar. No, but no. So I think about that often. So like that video, that's why I brought it up, because I just thought that was like so powerful. Because we don't ever actually think about that like constantly, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But like how? So you had that mentioned something about how like you didn't want to. At first, it was like not posting that video. It's like, yo, like I didn't want people to see that, like, yo, like I'm heartbroken. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm a strong, like, of course, like being a strong, like, woman, of course, like, and standing steadfast in that. Like, your platform is like, dang, like, I don't want to do this because of like them seeing like my weakness or anything like that. Like, what have you learned from that, just in terms of like, because that, I guess, like, even if you feel like that pressure sometimes, because I remember like whenever we did some EPs and I'm like telling people this, it's like, dang, they're gonna think less of me, like I'm less of like a leader or less of a minister or less anointed, or you know what I mean? Like how do you navigate that and deal with that? Because I know some people may be feeling that way, like, yo, what if they see X, Y, and Z differently? I don't know, because that became like that pride too.
I think my pride was completely knocked down, and it required me to be humble and humble myself before God above anything else, before anybody. But also understanding my worth, because it didn't really matter what people were going to say. I think like at first it did, like not even just with the video, but like with how I was going to, or how I even shared my testimony of how I even came to Christ, or testimonies of a certain situation that I was going through, or whatever the case may be, whatever required me to be vulnerable. But like it took a lot of pride out of me, and it required me to be humble. And I've never been the type to care about what people thought about me, just because, like I said, my uncle is very, plays a really big role in my life.
Right.
And he made sure that his nieces and his daughters knew their value and their worth in the Lord. Mm-hmm. So growing up, I knew my value. I knew who I meant to the Lord. I knew who I was in God's eyes. So I didn't let anybody change that. I wasn't going to let anyone's word change that. Mm-hmm. And his word says I am valuable over and over in scripture, you know? And I think he talks about this in Luke 12 about us being more valuable than birds, and how, you know, these birds are discounted. Mm-hmm. Like, how much more valuable are you? Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? And just saying my worth, I don't think I've ever really been affected about, what people are going to say about me. People are going to talk.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So I think my thing was not more about like, what are they going to say, but more about this pride has to be knocked down. Mm. I need to humble myself before God. I need to, you know, just get rid of that, like, greed, the selfishness, wanting to keep this to myself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because it would be selfish of me to keep this to myself and not share the glory of God and what he's done for me. Mm-hmm. That would be selfish. That would be greedy. That would be robbing somebody of a word, of a blessing, of something that could potentially help them or save their life.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, the word of God is powerful. So, I think more so that.
Breaking down the pride. That's all. That's always you, like your own self-image and how you perceive the people or whatever that looks like. Yeah, because our friend Eric, he always says it's like we're set free by the blood of the Lamb and the power of our testimony. And we've mentioned that before, but like the power and like the testimony and how much healing that can bring that we don't always like realize like at all.
But okay. I think you said too. There was one thing too. Like even I think this could even apply to men too, like getting your heart broken, especially like with men too. Like you don't want to show emotion at all. But as for women, like I said, I have 3 older brothers, and so a father who were very like, especially my oldest brother, who was like, stop crying. Stop doing that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I felt like I had to be this strong sister, like this strong woman, you know what I'm saying? So like the first time I recently got my heart broken, I was like, no crying. Like trying to hide this pain, trying to hide it. And God's like, no, like you need to break that mentality. Like you need to let it go. You know what I'm saying? You need to knock down that pride. You need to stop listening to the words of the world, like hold it in, be strong, like blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? And that this verse stuck out to me one day when I was reading. It's Psalms 34:18. It says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And I was like, you know what? I'm not afraid of being brokenhearted. You know what I'm saying? Because if that means the Lord is close to me, the Lord is always near, then keep me brokenhearted. You know what I'm saying?
That's good. Even mentioning like even with guys specifically, because it really is like a huge thing, just like having like that tough guy act. Because I've mentioned this before as a fact that like I think the strongest thing you can do is be weak before God.
Yes.
And like ultimately, and like that's, you know, like it's just completely counterculture. Like I said, when we step into the kingdom, it's literally like it's upside down from what we've always known. Like literally, it's like go up, you must go down. Yeah. And so, you know, we, like I said, especially like just with men in general, just with people, like I'm just seeing like a lot is that fact, that tough guy, like, no, don't cry, bro. Like, you know, keep at it. Like, yo, they hurt you, bro. You good? Like, what are you tripping over? You know what I mean?
Crying, bro.
Yeah. Like what's good? And it's just like, you know, we have like this persona that like, yo, that is strength, is to actually not be vulnerable or to hide or like, you know, to push things off, push it under the rug as if like, okay, I have more strength than, or I'm more like seen as like more masculine and or like more powerful like as a woman, right? To like not do that because it's like, oh, see, I'm too feminine. Oh, you cry all the time, or you're too emotional. You know what I mean? And like that fear, like even that perception, like people in terms of like the role you have to play to quote unquote look strong, it's completely different in the kingdom. It's like you have to be weak. Like that's where it starts at. Like you got to be low. You got to be low to go high.
100%.
100%. But no, yeah. And the last thing that I really wanted to ask you about was like your fitness thing. Yeah.
Oh, my journey?
Yeah, your fitness journey. So for those who don't know, you can let them know like what like you're doing with that. I just want to add this in there, like your fitness journey or whatever. Like your personal trainer, about to be soon, I think. Dietitian? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Tell the people. Let them know.
So that actually is a part of my testimony in which I had that fear of choking. And so I wasn't eating for a while. And nutrition became this thing that I had to really focus on after I overcame that fear, because I was severely unhealthy. So I started doing research, and I was like, oh, wow, wait. Even the stuff I was eating before, like, that was bad. You know what I'm saying? And
she's a health nut. She's a gym rat as well, if y'all don't know. She loves, like, lifting, getting in the gym. Like, she's really big into that. But go ahead.
I will say, though, I have my guilty pleasures, like ice cream, mint and chip, preferably.
Crazy.
Blasphemy, but go ahead. Go ahead. You good.
We should kick her out the studio.
Go ahead.
No, but like, in regards to that, I think it started off bad, like, oh, I need to get fit, I need to, like, take care of myself, like, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I started diving deep into this the enemy's lies. Oh, you need to look good, you need to feel good,
right.
like, blah blah blah. And then the Lord was like, I remember reading the verse, like, commit everything you do in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and that's including fitness, that's including what we eat, because food isn't everything, you know. And so it wasn't until I understood how much God wants us to take care of our bodies and our health and our just to live, you know. These are temples. He's entrusted us with these bodies, you know what I'm saying? And he wants us to live a long life, and he wants us to take care of ourselves. So that became a really big thing of mine, and I was like, okay, like, how can I help others do the same thing? You know what I'm saying? And that also became a mentality of mine. How can I serve others? Because I think I was stuck in this selfish mentality too. When I was entering the fitness and nutrition industry, I guess, I was like, how can I better myself? How can I look better? Blah, blah, blah. And God was like, no, let's shift this focus. How can we serve others? How can we gain more knowledge about this and teach others how to better themselves too, and take care of their temples, take care of their minds, you know, because if you're not doing good physically, you're not doing good spiritually, you're not doing good everywhere else. You know what I'm saying? And so, I eventually I wasn't going to school either. I had spent a year just building my relationship with God, just doing whatever it is I was doing, trying to work, focus on God. And eventually the Lord was like, okay, like, I think it's time to go back to school and learn more about this, dive deeper. You're passionate about nutrition, passionate about fitness. Let's learn more about this so we can educate our people, my people. So you can educate my people about this, Clarissa. And I was like, I want to do this. And not to mention, I struggled with my purpose in life. What am I going to do, God? Like, I felt like I had no direction. I had no person. I'm like, God, like, all these people are doing great things for you. Like, what am I doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so God was like, this is what you're going to do. And so I was looking at schools. I wanted to go to USC. I know I did whatever it was to study. It didn't matter what. But that was before I knew I wanted to study nutrition. And a whole bunch of other schools, like Pittsburgh would have been nice, like all these other schools that I was interested in. However, breaking it down, UNLV became one of the best options for me, and one of the greatest options for me. And it's actually crazy how it happened. And it's a big part of my fitness and nutrition testimony, because it all started with my family. And my father and I decided to drive out to Vegas just to detox from the life back home. It was very much needed. And while I was out here, I told him, I was like, I want to go look at UNLV. We should go look. Like, you know, because I was already looking at colleges, you know. And my cousin had just moved into a new house. And she was like, oh, yeah, like, you can come live here. Like, you can stay with us. You know you're always welcome. Everything fell into place after that. I was like, this is the wisest decision I can make right now. I could go to Pitt. I can go to Cal State Long Beach, wherever the case may be, but it wouldn't be wise financially. It wouldn't be wise, because that's not where God was calling me. God was calling me there. He was like, that's where you need to be. The transfer counselors were, how do I put this? They were excited to like have me there. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen that energy in any other colleges, you know, and or transfer counselors that I've talked to. And what got me the most was the director of nutritional science emailed me everything to apply to. She sent me packages of how my plan would work. The tracks I would want to take. She was opening up doors for me in this field, and I was like, that no other school had told me about. They were just like, yeah, we have this program, you can join it, like blah blah blah. but she was getting in depth, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's what this is where I want to be. And I had my cousin there too, so I knew I was gonna have family who loved and cared about me.
Facts,
and who supports me, someone to look up to, because she is a hard worker. She just gets after it, and she's so passionate about what she does. She gets up and she's happy to do what she does, and I aspire to be like that, especially since I'm the type of person who just like, I get bored of things really easily.
Yeah.
Or like tired of doing something real easily, especially when I'm not passionate about it. But since this is something I'm passionate about, I have somebody to look up to, and ultimately this is to serve and glorify God and help his kingdom. So, that's how I guess my journeys came about in regards to that, like, And I wouldn't tell somebody to focus so much on eating, but more about the importance of their body and what it means to take care of it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, like, don't eat this, like, don't eat that. You need to follow this diet. You need to follow this diet. No. I ultimately want some people to just have the mentality of, I need to take care of my body.
Yeah.
I love my body because God created this body. Yeah. Not in a selfish, I love my body, I want to look good, like, but no, I love this body because God loves this body. He's entrusted me with this body, and I need to take care of it. You know what I'm saying? So
then what?
I want to help.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I think that's needed for sure. I like how you're like incorporating the aspect of physical health into your spiritual life as well.
Yeah.
There's this woman named Dr. Caroline Leaf. I used to watch her podcast, and she's like a psychiatrist, and she always like promotes the idea of holistic health, like physical, spiritual, and mental health. Yeah. It's like, I think once we get to that point, it's like we're kind of gonna be like unstoppable in a way, like some superheroes for real. Because I think that definitely gets put on the back burner a lot. But I think something I'm noticing, because I'm on Gym Talk, right? Like, I'm not a gym rat. I'm not a gym rat, but I'm on TikTok, Gym Talk, because I liked a couple of videos, and ever since then it's been flooded with it. Something I'm seeing is I feel like I'm loving how they're promoting the idea of physical health, right? But I think they're doing it in a way where I've noticed they're idolizing it in a way, right? They're kind of like running to the gym with their pain, or like, and they're, like you said, idolizing themselves and their ego, like, oh, I got hurt, so I'm gonna go to the gym so I can look good. I'm gonna run to the gym with my pain. So do you ever feel like at some point that's where you're at, where you kind of like put the gym at a place it wasn't supposed to be, or is that something you ever noticed in other people's, like?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was literally like, wow, I look good, like, blah, blah, blah. And then I think I went through a 2-week period where I didn't work out completely because God was convicting me. He was like, no, this is not what we're doing it for. This doesn't glorify me, Clarissa. You know it doesn't glorify me. So I think he was shifting my mind in that time period. And he was like, okay, like, it became, okay, how can I serve others? How can I help others with this? Granted, like, looking good is a benefit, but it's not everything. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so I think my whole thing is just like, serving the kingdom of God in regards to that. And when you said holistic health, it's crazy because the director at UNLV for nutritional science, she was talking about holistic nutrition as a path. And I was like, I want to do that because, it incorporates everything. You know what I'm saying? Your background, everything. So it's just like stuff like that.
Yeah. This is actually going to be the last question. But now that you're saying that, you're talking about like, obviously, like, that's kind of like the lane you're going in, which you feel like you're called to, like, you're, somewhat like purpose in a way. And I always talk about, or I'm harping on, like, I guess, like, the vulnerability of purpose, right? And that's kind of like a purpose, like a process I'm going through right now. It's like the yes you're giving to God, and how that's like you giving, like, not only like I gave you my life, you know what I mean? I'm giving you my relationships, my heart, but now I'm giving you like my career, like this ministry, what you're calling me to do. Like, there can be a lot of vulnerability in that. So like, how do you, like, just like, I guess ending off, like, how do you feel about like that, because that can be another part of just like vulnerability to God. Is like, okay, like, you're calling me to, like, would that be like on TikTok, like talking, like in your ministry, and you're talking, or like, yo, I need to, like, in terms of fitness, like going down this path when you don't want to, when you don't feel like it all the time, you know what I mean? Or like, this may be the last thing I actually want to do, like get up and like make this TikTok, or go to class, or no matter what, but like, I know, like, yo, God, he told me this, like, this is what I need to be doing, like, this is my yes, like, like, because that can be the hardest part of like walking with them.
So how do I say yes?
Yeah, like, what's that process look like if you even like, get into that process, like sticking through that,
I think God gave me such a peace about this.
Yeah, it's a fool, bro.
Yeah, so.
Go ahead.
No, God gave me such a peace about it. So saying yes wasn't the hardest part. You know what I'm saying? Because I completely trust God.
Yeah.
If he's going to take me somewhere and I know it's from him, that's where discernment also came into play. I'm like, all right, God, if this is where you want me, you're going to provide.
Yeah.
I didn't know I would actually, at first, I didn't know I was going to be living with my cousin. I still had to ask her.
Of course,
You know, it's because that's her house, her family. You know what I'm saying? So, schooling, how am I going to find the funds for this? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I was like, all right, God, like, you know what? I'm going to just apply. If I get in, great, perfect. Now, what else are you going to provide for this school? Like, if I get in, he provided my living situation, revealed to me how I was going to get my funds. So everything kind of just fell into place. So saying yes wasn't the hardest. And I had said yes before. Like, as soon as I applied, I was like, all right, let's do it. Like, I took that leap of faith. I was like, all right, God, I'm all in. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I was already like, what more can I lose? Even if I do lose something, like, I still have him. Like, he's going to take care of me wherever I go, wherever he takes me. So, saying yes wasn't the hardest part, but I will say leaving my family was hard because I'm not going to say daddy's girl or mommy's girl because I'm a parent's girl. I love both of them. I am under their wing. Like it's unbelievable. But leaving them had to be like one of the hardest things, leaving my church. My uncle played such a big role in my life. A lot of things I've learned biblically were from him and what the Lord has done through him.
Right.
So, like, leaving that church that I was so comfortable being at was hard because I'm like, where am I going to find a church? Like, am I going to find a good church like this? You know, am I going to learn in depth the way he teaches? Like, you know what I'm saying? Or the way God uses him? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so, and then God provided a great church in Vegas too. So I was like, wow, this is, you know, everything kind of just fell into place, you know? So I think when it comes to God's plan and you know it's from God and he's providing, there's really no hesitation to be like, I'm all in.
Right.
Because you know it's him. You know he's going to take care of you every step of the way. You know what I'm saying? Even when you're unsure, it's about taking that leap of faithfulness in God. You know what I'm saying? And just like going after it.
Complete surrender.
Complete
surrender.
Right.
Comes full circle.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got anything else to like leave the people with? Like any crazy gem? That's usually how we end all our segments. You know what I mean? If you do, any words of wisdom? Like, you know how pastors be having like they close out and the dude come out and start playing the piano. That's kind of like what this part is.
This is what that is basically.
Yeah. Cueing the music, the worship music.
Well, I mean, I just want to leave off with, you know, the love of God because I mean that's what I've learned. You know, and loving and being vulnerable are two extremely important things you need on your walk with God and important in your need to grow, you know. And I remember talking to you on the phone and I said that love is not something that happens to you. It's a condition you create when you give. So
run it back, bro. Say it again. Say it again. I'm sorry. Run that back.
So love is not something that happens to you. It's a condition you create when you give. And I feel like oftentimes we can think of love as a feeling. You know, we get all caught up in our emotions. Right. But we forget that it's not a feeling. It's something you do. It requires action. It requires something of it. It requires suffering. It can require suffering, pain, you know, being vulnerable. Facts. Right? So yeah, I would leave them with that, to choose love all the time. You know, even when you're broken to the max, or even when you're in pain, because I feel like sometimes like you can get so caught up in like your pain. You'd be like, I do not want to talk to this person. Right? Yeah. Like, you know, you want to choose hate, like you want revenge and stuff, and God's like, no, we need to pray for them. You're like, pray for them. Like, but you know, then you just want to be able to choose love, even if that person has hurt you, even if that thing hurt you, even if you didn't get that job, even if the doctor did tell you that bad news. You want to choose love. You want to choose happiness. You want, you know. So yeah, I would just say that.
That's real. You got
That's a
you got
bar.
anything else?
I got anything else?
Yeah.
Nah, I think Miss Clarissa went crazy.
She did it. She did. No, she did the thing I told y'all she'd be
real.
preaching. Hold on. What was that last line again? What you just say?
Say it again, say it again.
Love,
One more time.
love is
One more
what?
time.
Love is what? One more time, please, for people in the back.
Love is not something that happens to you. It's a condition you create when you give.
That's the one. That's all I got.
So what are you giving? I like that. That's a bar.
Yeah.
So what are you giving? All right, look.
Yay.
Y'all know what it is. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you guys.
No, we appreciate you. It was great. It's a
You
amazing
guys are
conversation.
great.
Amazing.
Well, look, y'all know what it is. Stay you
Stay real.
and stay humble. We'll catch y'all next week. Much love.